Hello and welcome to The Price of Music, brought to you by Music Ally. If you want an easy guide to what's going on in the music industry and how it all works, then here we are looking at the finances of the music industry, whilst also bringing you stories and comments from the pop biz in the past week. He's Stuart Dredge, I'm Joe Sparrow. Stu, let's start with a big number.
A big number. It sounds like a small number, but I should explain, because the number is 28%.
Does that sound like a small number? How is it a big number?
Well, it's bigger than you'd expect. So the question this relates to is a survey done by Luminate, the big research firm, of Americans, asking them about how they'd feel about music and films and games and podcasts if they knew they were made using AI. And they asked them, would you be more interested in them, less interested in them, or would you not care?
Now, can I guess what this 28% is out of those three choices then?
Go for it. Which chunk of the pie?
I think they just don't care.
No.
Oh.
So 38% people would be less interested in music if AI had been used.
Okay.
33% are neutral. And then 28% said they'd be more interested. So 17% would be slightly more interested in music if they knew it had been made using AI. 11% would be much more interested. Like, give it to me then. And I don't know what to think about this, but I did have a think about it. They broke the results out by age group here. So for each group, so, they covered like sort of 15 to 18, 24-year-olds, 13, 17-year-olds, up to, pensioners. And it turned out that for 13 to 17-year-olds, they were 19% positives and, more positive than negative on AI music. And that swung to minus 29% for 18 to 24-year-olds. So where you might think of all people under 25 think the same thing, actually there's two very different groups of people here. One who thinks it. So
cynical teens and not down with AI, hey?
I've got a hot take on this.
Ooh, please.
So I think 18 to 24-year-olds, they're the most fiercely kind of anti-AI demographic in this until you get to really older people. And I think that's because when you're that age, you treat music is a real big pillar of your personal identity and your kind of your social brand. And also, these people are grown up with creators as a really important thing, whether it's TikTokers, whoever. But they understand that idea of the people who do the things they like need to get paid, I think. So I thought maybe that's one reason why that age group are very much. Whereas 13 to 17-year-olds, I don't think they want like AI pop stars, but I think they think of Gen AI as like generating memes or making toys or games.
Yeah.
So for them, I think it's kind of quite an exciting creative thing. Yeah. But I wonder when they get to 18 to 24 and they start getting into music and going to gigs and buying vinyl, whatever it's doing, maybe they'll then flip. And maybe that is the thing. You get to the age where music becomes significant to you in terms of the people making it. And that's when you flip into, I don't want AI.
Yeah, and it sort of makes sense, doesn't it? When you get to the age where you start paying rent and having to pay for stuff, and you realize the connection between doing and earning and what all that means, it does sort of make sense. And it does tally with, I have a class of students that I lecture to, and I apologize to them. But these are that age bracket of sort of 18 to 24-year-olds, and they these are students who are choosing to study music business, so they have a specific perspective, perhaps, but they are all very anti generative AI when it comes to music, not so much when it comes to cheating on their essays. Sorry, using them as a research tool for their essays. But when it comes to music, they're really anti it, and they really there's very few voices saying, "Oh well, I kind of think this is okay." I mean, when it comes to producers, they're a bit more interested in it. They will say, "Well, I spin up some samples and spin up some music and sample it and then use it myself." But yeah, it's interesting how they see perhaps opportunity being taken away from them through generative AI. Anyway, speaking of AI, let's move on to the big stories this week. Last week, we spoke about, this sounds boring, but it's fascinating, a data breach at the generative music AI platform Suno.
We lost everyone at data breach.
Yeah, sorry, come back. It's someone sort of managed to wheedle some code out of the Suno platform, and it seemed to, or gave the appearance of giving the game away on what kind of music the platform had used to train its models on. There has been a development, Stu. Will you be using the word allegedly a lot this week?
Possibly so. Well, so when this happened, originally the story was, Suno trained its stuff on YouTube and Deezer and these other places because it was found in its source code that a hacker got. And at the time it said, but no sensitive personal information was compromised here. And there's this site, which people might know, and this is my lesson of the week. This week I learned it's called Have I Been Pwned? Like toned. I thought it was Have I Been Pawned? That's a different website, tracking different abuses of you.
But type carefully, folks.
Yeah. So How I've Been Pwned, it tracks all these breaches. It's where you go to find out, okay, have my details been compromised on any kind of website? And it said that this attack, which happened last November, so some hackers hacked into Suno last November, it claimed it exposed more than 55 million email addresses, phone numbers if they've been used to sign up, and then tens of thousands of records from Stripe, the payment service for people who actually subscribe to Suno, with names, addresses, and partial credit card details. So not the whole credit card numbers, but partial data.
The last 4 digits or something like that.
Yeah. And all Suno said so far, so that this was reported in the press, and Suno's response was, it confirmed there was an incident, and it did not disagree with the figures, so the 55 million email addresses. So it hasn't said anything else other than that, but it basically hasn't disagreed with the core claim here. So this basically, one thing this says is like Suno is now big enough to become a target for hackers, because where there is a bunch of users, I think it's 100 million people have used it said. Yeah. And for a hacker, that's like we're thinking, right, let's go and try and get their details.
And there's 100 million paying users, right?
No. People have used it. I think it was about 2 million paying users last time they announced it. And it kind of raises questions about, okay, well, how good was its security? There is this is a more general point than just Suno, because I don't have any inside information. But in the AI, the whole point is you rush to scale, don't you? You've got to scale up really quickly. You've got to raise loads of VC. You've got to become bigger than all your rivals quickly to become the leader. Does that mean that cybersecurity is maybe lagging behind? I mean, that's the kind of question this sort of event sparks. How good was their security when they were growing to become the biggest AI music service? But yeah, on a personal level, if you registered for Suno, and especially if you paid for it, like now is a good time to change your password.
Change your password, yes.
If you use that password for other services, change those and don't do that again. Yes. Because it's just, I mean, this has happened regularly. I mean, I've lost count of which services I use that suddenly had a big data breach and had to go and change my password and worry for days. And we're at that moment in AI music now where the biggest popular platform has become a target for hackers.
There's a lot of stuff there, isn't there? I mean, okay, first of all, folks, use a password manager. But also, haveibeenpwned.com. That's PWNED, I think, spelled like that. It is a great service, and it is legit, and it is supported by major players online. And you give it your email address. And then if your email address is ever found in any leaks, you will get an email saying, change your password. It's really very good. So please do that. But yes, like you say, Suno obviously is now big enough and has enough paying subscribers for it to be worth going and trying to uncover this data. They've apparently accidentally also uncovered a bit of a smoking gun around training. And, I mean, it says something about our sort of current system around how tech works, which, I mean, has for a long time been move fast and break things, famously. But like you say, AI is accelerating that. It's also accelerating hacking. It must be a great time to be a hacker with all these code-based, code-generating AIs. And of course, it does raise the question of, when you apply it to a creative thing like music, do we want this? Do we want more as fast as possible? And I wonder, when we go back to that first thing we were talking about the slight cynicism amongst certain people, is, why is there an assumption? Why are we going along with the assumption that we want more of it, faster, cheaper, when we've already got so much music in the first place? And it sort of ties together with that, doesn't it?
Yeah. And the other thing here, I think, is transparency. Like when you have been subject to a data breach, when you're a company, I mean, not the individual. In many countries, there are literal legal requirements of what you have to do. So in the UK, if you had data breach, you have to tell people about it. You have to, otherwise you get the data watchdog on you. So for now, I think what happens now is people who will be expecting to come out and say, right, this is what happened. This is how many people were affected. We're going to be emailing all of the people affected, telling them what to do now. Like you can't kick this stuff under the carpet. You have to do right by your users, and it may be they're still trying to figure out what was breached, what was lost. So you don't want to come up before time when you don't know exactly. But that is the next step here, I think, for Suno to not just not disagree with the numbers put to them, but actually come out and say, this is what happened, and this is what we're doing about it, and this is how we can, if you're using us, this is how we're going to make you feel safe.
I guess rule number one, if you're a hyperscaling startup, is move fast and break things. But rule number two is make sure you don't break your own things, which is what it looks like they might have done here. Let's move on to story number two. Talking about perception and adding things to services, we've since day one for 20 years thought of Spotify as a music and audio service, but in recent years they've allowed uploads of video, and it's becoming a lot more visual if you use the platform. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So Spotify has a brand new daily music videos chart, which sounds very YouTubey. Is it now officially the new MTV? And what does it mean about full-length music videos, which for context, they're about 3 minutes long, but we're sort of so used to seeing TikTok 10-second videos, we assume they might have been killed off. So what is this new chart? What does it mean about music videos? And is Spotify pivoting to TV?
Pivoting to video, yeah. Well, do you know, it's funny, there's been this series of phases for Spotify and video. I remember the very first time it said we're going to add video, it was kind of YouTubers. And there was this press conference with this excruciating segment where they had, I think it was Broad City, which is a really good sitcom that started on YouTube with two really clever leads. And they were on stage making jokes, and it fell flat as a
lovely
flat thing. And then they shifted to like, we're going to be VH1 and we're going to make good, serious music documentaries. I can't do the voice you do, but
good, serious music documentaries.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. And then they went to, and right now they're back into music videos, full-length music videos.
Right.
So there's a global chart. So every day, it's refreshed every day, a top 50 music videos on Spotify by their stream counts. And alongside that, they've got pitching tools so that artists and labels can pitch their videos in and say, we'd like to be on these video playlists, please. In the same way you pitch in to be on today's top hits or, big. And this comes a couple of months, or maybe less than that, after Spotify launched a thing saying, actually, as an artist, you can now directly upload your full-length music videos to Spotify. You don't have to go through a label distributor. You can put your own videos in there. It wants everyone to be putting lots of music videos on there. And so, yeah, it kind of looks like, well, it's two things. It's an attempt to directly go up against YouTube, which is the home of music videos online and has been for so long. But it's also a kind of a sort of against TikTok and saying, yeah, actually, you can watch full music videos here. It's not just 15-second clips. You can get the full. There's this thing happening with Spotify. They're talking about time well spent. Like it's become a mantra for executives. And what they want, they're positioning themselves against places like TikTok. They criticize the idea of just flipping through a scrolling feed. They want to be somewhere you come to watch and go deeper into things. And music videos are kind of part of that pitch too. So, yeah.
I mean, as much as I sort of agree with that in the sense of like, I find platforms where you sort of relentlessly skip through things to be exhausting and not what I want to do. There is something extremely snobbish about saying one of our metrics is time well spent, as opposed to time badly spent. And
this podcast is about time badly spent. You come out for half an hour going, "Why did I listen to those two?"
That's right. Yes, we aim to make sure that when you finish listening to this podcast, you've learned nothing. But I will say for context as well, the first person I heard use this as a metric was Elon Musk. So that tells you everything you need to know. I think. Why are Spotify doing this? Because Spotify are really interesting in a sense because every other major music streaming platform is part of something else. Okay, so YouTube is part of Google, Amazon Music, part of Amazon, Apple Music, part of Apple. They're sort of standing alone, and that's kind of amazing in the modern environment of monopolies and duopolies. But they've made their name around, music and music videos are connected to music, but they're going up against YouTube, which is the biggest, not only the biggest streaming platform in the world, it's the biggest music streaming platform in the world. What is in it for them?
Yeah, well, partly it's about keeping you on Spotify. Yeah. They don't want you to have to go to YouTube to watch a video. They want you to stay right there. It's partly about it's partly about kind of that positioning against TikTok. So TikTok, the whole thing, there are endless short clips, big discovery of music, a debate about whether that discovery turns into actual streaming the full songs, going deeper into the artist. So Spotify position says, actually, here you can come and watch the artist's their vision for their song in full, and it's not a clip. So that, again, it's like that whole positioning thing of saying we are the place you want to come and spend time with music. And I think it's just video. I mean, everyone. I mean, I wrote the other day about a story about Facebook saying we're going to actually test a version of our app now that's going to go straight into full screen video. So there is a sense of video is becoming the lead kind of format for so many different things, social networks. And Spotify, I think, wants to be there. And what's the obvious thing? Music videos, because that's rights holders it deals with already, artists it deals with already. It's an easy thing to bolt on while it figures out whether it wants to also become Netflix or also become TikTok or also become any other number of other video things.
This is one of the fascinating things about merging technologies, isn't it? When you look at it over a period of time, like we're used to very fast changes and all this stuff happening, but eventually everything just sort of goes back to how it was before. So we're moving back to a place where all this technology and Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all this stuff is basically becoming network TV again. Like it's all about, you know, putting videos in front of people and getting people watching it. Netflix used to be revolutionary because you paid a small amount of money and got access to all this stuff. And now really everyone has multiple subscriptions, like in the old days when they used to have a cable subscription or whatever. It's plus or change, isn't it? Writ large.
Do you think one worry I have about this? There's no evidence of this yet, but it's still
I like speculation. Go on.
No, it's expensive to make. Well, it can be really cheap to make a music video.
Yeah,
but it can be expensive too. If Spotify's push into video leads it to start prioritizing tracks that do have full-length videos attached, like you can imagine, it would say, right, well, we're going to bump these up in the recommendations. We want everyone to be watching music videos. I worry that's going to favor the biggest labels and the biggest artists over the independent labels and smaller artists, and who are already figuring out recording and touring costs, and music videos are an extra cost. So that would be my worry, that Spotify pushing into music video, if it leads it to start prioritizing stuff that has music videos, is that going to be a disadvantage for indies and DIY artists?
So it's a little bit mirroring that concern of indie artists who, they are sort of deprioritized in terms of earnings if they don't produce an Atmos mix on Apple Music, for instance.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's segue to politics. The UK has a new prime minister. He's a northerner. He's a New Order stan, and one of his first moves was focused on helping grassroots music venues and clubs. And when we heard this news, we thought immediately of one Steve Lamacq, formerly of this parish, who had sort of been asking for a lot of these things at a political level for a long time. And it looks like he might be starting to get them. What's gone on?
It is. And so Andy Burnham, for people outside the UK, like he's a long-time politician, but he was the mayor of Manchester, or the Manchester area. So he has been involved in local music policy for the last few years. So he has actually been active in this area. And yeah, one of his first, literally, I think day 3, was it, of his being prime minister of the whole country. He announced his 20% cut in business rates, which I know Steve used to talk about on this podcast a lot. So that's the tax you pay if you are a music venue, a nightclub, a pub, or any high street business. So grassroots music venues, nightclubs and pubs are getting 20% cut in these business rates, which could save typical local pub around 1,100 quid in the next year. That was the kind of stat given by the government. I don't know if it's the same for venues. It may be different, but that's the round thing. And it excludes the biggest live music venues. It said it's not the biggest venues, it's independent grassroots venues. And then there was a fun bit where the government said this will cost about 100 million quid, and there's a big pressure on them to say how they're going to raise this money. And they said, we're going to scrap rate relief businesses that don't make a positive community contribution. And they just named one kind of business, which is vape shops. So vape shops pay more tax, venues get a cut. And this has been generally warmly welcomed, I think, hasn't it?
Has been warmly welcomed. It feels like the thin end of a hopefully a wedge, in the sense of, making a rates cut that helps on average places like that £1,000 per year, which is, it's better to have £1,000 than not, but it's not not an enormous amount of money when we know the facts and figures of how hard it is to run a small venue, but it is sort of it's throwing them a bone, isn't it? And it's a signal from Andy Burnham to say, look, we're sort of open to looking at other things to do and making things better. Of course, Andy Burnham, as mayor of Manchester, made a lot of moves that were sort of with normal working people in Manchester in mind. He cut prices for local buses. He renationalised things. He is a famous music fan. Although I did find an old tweet of his where he praised the Stone Roses comeback single from about 10 years ago.
Spreads.
So no, the one from 10 years ago when they reformed. But everyone makes mistakes. It's fine. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, because we've spoken about this a lot on the podcast with Steve and with guests, and they're asking for very similar simple things. Can you cut the VAT on for live venues? Can you give us a break on certain other nighttime rates and things like that, highlighting their community oriented benefits of having these venues still going. And it sort of feels like he may be much more inclined to nudge those things along.
Yeah. And there's been a couple of criticisms. One comes from music industry bodies. The other comes from my barber.
Okay, well, let's stop.
The music industry bodies one. There have been some nervousness, I think, about excluding larger venues. And you might think, oh, great, yeah, of course, the O2 shouldn't be part of this. It's massive. But people have been saying, actually, this is all interconnected. And the big venues do support the smaller venues in terms of the kind of the way the whole ecosystem works. So they subsidize some of the financial risks in the grassroots. They train some of the infrastructure and the crew. So some people are saying, actually, we're not sure about excluding large venues from this. And that's a topical point that we'll see what happens. Yeah. As for my barber,
go on.
I was talking to him about it, and he was saying, well, it's no good, having tax cuts for the venues if none of the rest of us can afford to go to them. And so he was I think he was coming from a point of view of a different kind of high street business, saying, well, why can't we have a business for leave cut?
Yeah.
But he was also saying this stuff only matters if people have money in their pockets to go to gigs, which to be fair is a big part of this new government is talking about putting more money in people's pockets, helping ordinary people. So, but that was a two-question affair. One is like, it's not just one thing can act alone. And bigger venues should.
I think as ever with any political decision making, there's a gesture element to this, and like you say, this idea of excluding the big venues will have gone down very well in certain circles because it's a clear. Even though, the real impact of this is actually fairly small, but it's meaningful. The exclusion of those bigger venues, it does subtly suggest a priority shift down towards smaller businesses, working people, and helping those as a priority over helping large multinationals. And depending on your politics, that's a really good thing, or it isn't.
That's a branding, positioning thing.
It's definitely a positioning thing. So it will be very interesting to see how this develops, because I'm sure that the major venues are lobbying hard for everything that they want, and we will see how that is navigated. But there's what we've got as well is a lot of organizations around the nighttime industries, especially with small venues, who have very clear argument points ready to go around cuts and changes and help. And let's see how that happens. It'd be interesting. Okay, any other business? Stu, what's the latest big music trend in Mexico?
Well, if I was going to ask you to guess, you might come up with another regional Mexican genre, perhaps.
For sure.
Or a version of trap. It's not. It's emo.
Emo
and pop punk.
Emo and pop punk. So, I know that the younger generation have had a long-standing fascination with the 90s. But this is just hopping forwards, sort of...
Y2K nostalgia. Is that what
Y2K nostalgia. We have exhausted the 90s seam of fashion and trends, and we're now moving on to the decade that taste sort of forgot immediately at the time, didn't it? Of those weirdly ironed fringes and wearing ties as belts,
and there we lost the young audience too. If they didn't go updated. Well, yeah. So this is actually data from Spotify. Okay. that says that between 2019 and 2025, streams for emo and pop punk in Mexico nearly doubled. And monthly listeners for the genre have jumped by 66%. And it was very keen to say, this is not just about Mexicans streaming My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy.
Right.
It's actually driven by domestic Mexican bands. So there's one. Now, the name of this band, I should have checked this out, is PXNDX. It's probably something like Panda, isn't it?
Oh, I see. Yes.
It's almost. They've got like 3.5 million monthly listeners, and they've got the most streamed emo song in Mexican history. And I thought there was this blog post on Spotify explaining this, and I thought it was interesting because it was saying that there's actually Mexican pop culture and Mexican regional music. It's very much about heartbreak and angst and melodrama, and big. And so actually, the emo fits actually into that culture perfectly. It's not such a weird mismatch as you might think.
No, and it is. I mean, that is one of those genres that I have a total void of knowledge in, because one, it passed me by, but two, I sort of chose to let it pass me by because I wasn't interested in it. But it's an interesting sort of pattern of adoption. And again, I'll refer to my students that when I had an intake of first-year students last year, and they're all between 18 and 20, and they're from all over the world. And I said, "What music are you into?" And really, at least 25% of them are really into new metal, right? They really love Limp Bizkit and Korn and System of a Down, and that's that cusp sort of switch over from the late 90s to the mid noughties around that time, and they love it. And I said to them, "Really?" And they were like, "Yes, really."
I think, though, and this is not being disparaging in any way.
Please,
I think these are young people's genres. Like when you're young and you're feeling all the things, these really speak to you. And I think so. If you're like us, we would just missed it. We were 90s people.
Yeah.
And I think if you were a teenager when emo happened, it was really amazing. It spoke to you. And then obviously as you get older, you have that nostalgia for it. And people are going to see My Chemical Romance in their kind of hundreds of thousands. And that's the big, that's the Blur equivalent or the Oasis equivalent for that genre.
I think
if you missed it, if you were just too old for emo, I think you looked at it and went, "Oh, it's younger people being over dramatic." but it wasn't. It was it connected.
I resent the implication that you're saying that if I had been born 5 years later, I've been really into Limp Bizkit. But I take your point.
Well, no, I don't. Limp Bizkit aren't emo though, are they? And we need to draw some lines here. New metal.
New metal is definitely distinct.
Well, Korn emo. I feel Korn were more on the.
Oh no, they were on the Limp Bizkit side of things.
Were they?
Yeah,
I feel like new metal is more to me was rap rock by douches.
What you want to hate me?
And emo was nice, sensitive people screaming at the world. Is that too reductive?
No, I think
it's way too reductive.
Exactly on the money there.
But big in Mexico, and apparently 20% of Mexican emo listeners are aged 18 to 24. So it really is young people.
It is that. And are they calling the genre Mex-emo?
Not yet, but try it.
There it is. Now, Live Nation, talking of large promoters who aren't getting a tax cut in the UK, Live Nation, they want you to become, that's you, a festival promoter. Famously one of the most difficult jobs in the universe. But happily, for your stress levels and financial standing, it's all pretend. What, Stu? What is this?
This is something the other morning that distracted me for a full half an hour from writing the Music Highlight Bulletin. It's a Roblox game called Music Festival Tycoon, launched by Live Nation.
Okay.
And it's part of Livewire, I think it is. And it's tycoon games.
Yeah.
It's a genre from when we were young. It was things like Roller Coaster Tycoon. Like basically you're building, constructing a business.
Like theme park and
theme park tycoon.
Big fan.
And this is still big on Roblox. There's a whole bunch of these games on there. So you start with a blank field, have to place stages, set up food stalls, merch stands, toilets, and then book acts. And this is partly about getting the kids into the idea of festivals, because Live Nation wants them to come and go to real festivals.
Do you think, famously, I thought kids like festivals, or am I just being old now?
I don't think you can take it for granted, though. in a modern world. I think you have to be thinking, well, how do we make sure? It's also
a brand going outside and touching grass, isn't it? Going to a music festival.
touching 4 feet of mud.
Touching grass and suspicious other objects on the floor that you find at festivals.
Yeah. But it's also about brands. So I think Lollapalooza is a launch partner. They're going to have official stages from their mascots. And then you'll both be cross-promoting real artists. So like K-pop group Cortis, who are appearing at Lollapalooza for the first time, they're going to be in-game with virtual performances and avatars. So it's kind of tying into stuff in the real world of marketing. And it's quite fun. Like, there's a bit of wit about it. Like these artists have little biographies.
Okay.
And there was one, it was like these two rappers just live for their boom bap. They can't bear anything else. Full stop. They're 17.
Yeah.
So there's a lot. Someone who's writing the copy for this is actually quite on it.
Okay.
And it feels very Robloxy. It doesn't feel like a corporate.
What does that mean for people who haven't played Roblox? What does that mean? It sort of feels very Robloxy.
It feels very absolutely baffling if you're older than 30. But no, it feels like it's learnt from a game genre that works well on Roblox. And it doesn't feel like a corporation going, we're going to build a Roblox experience and you can explore the Live Nation zone.
It feels legit and DIY.
It feels like a game. And it feels like it's been done. I think it's a company called Sawhorse Interactive who actually know their onions. So it feels like they've gone into Roblox and going, we're actually going to build something like the stuff people play on Roblox, rather than like something we all sat around in a meeting thinking would be a good experiential activation. So if you fancy doing your own festival without having to go bankrupt and be shouted at by artists.
Yeah.
How about it?
Yeah, I remember famously, if you run a music festival, especially in the UK, and it rains, and then you have to kind of go out and put straw and wood chip down on the floor so that it doesn't all sink, you immediately lose money because there's simply buying wood chip to cover a festival will destroy your profit margin. So I wonder if it has that built into the game as well.
Do you know, here's a Roblox game someone should make. Emergency wood chip supplies manufacturer tycoon. And you just wait till you get a phone call from festival saying, my God, we're under 3 feet of rain. And you go, that'll be £2 million.
Maybe this is something for the lock-in later. So if you are enjoying the podcast so far, you can support us by signing up to our Patreon, which gives you makes you a super fan of the show and gives you an extra 15 to 20 minutes of blah blah every week after the main podcast ends. You find the link below the podcast. Maybe this is something for us to discuss in the lock-in sometime, Stu, which is the most dreadful thing we ever saw at a music festival.
Oh, God.
I think we both have plenty of stories.
Yes.
A running feature. Okay. Finally, I'm gonna say these words to you. K-pop shark heroes.
K-pop shark heroes.
What?
Well, if anyone isn't aware of Discovery Channel's iconic Shark Week, it's a celebration of sharks that runs for a week, and it's about shark conservation. It's about destroying some of the perceptions of sharks as terrible toothed human chewers.
Right, which they also are, right? I mean, two things can be true.
That's why
they do like eating people.
Some sharks do not eat people, and I won't have you besmirch the good name of other sharks.
Yeah, the hammerhead will leave you alone.
Yeah. So anyway, every time they have this week of programming, Shark Week, and this time they've got a special called K-pop Shark Heroes, which stars two of the stars of K-pop Demon Hunters. So it's Ken Jeong, the comedian, and singer Remy, who sings as Zoe in the thing. And they're hosting it. And the idea is, and there's a quote here, is to educate, empower, and shift the narrative around sharks through the power of K-pop.
Wow.
Which, if anyone can rehabilitate the image of an apex predator with 400 teeth, it's a synchronized dance routine and a catchy hook by 7 people who... But yeah, and this is the thing is, I was researching this because I'm a serious podcaster. Yeah. It's not the first shark K-pop crossover, you know.
Really?
So last year, if you missed this, I'm sure. I mean, again, Steve Lamacq will have watched this, I'm sure.
Yes.
Baby Shark's big movie. Do you remember that last year?
I was about to say, is Baby Shark the who we have covered many times on this show? Baby Shark involved, and here we are.
Baby Shark's big movie had an Enhypen tie-in, the K-pop band. So there's something in the air, you know.
Wow.
But I think, I don't know. We grew up, again, in a time when Jaws was in cultural memory.
Yes.
And sharks are exciting.
Sharks are exciting.
Shark Week is exciting. It's not really big here in the UK. It's a big US thing.
No.
But it makes sense to rope in whatever the latest pop culture trend is.
I have not engaged with Shark Week, but it does sound like something worth watching. Although I rewatched Jaws recently, and it is still a really, really good movie.
Yeah.
Scary.
I think that's the thing. The Shark Week, there'll be a disappointing lack of sharks chewing up humans, which is maybe what you want. There's no kind of Sharknado aspect to it. It's more about sharks being the conservationist side and the positive side of sharks.
Let me just pitch a reality show for you here, which is a sort of K-pop boot camp show with K-pop people competing to be in the newest K-pop mega group.
Oh, I can see this coming.
And if you get knocked down at each episode, you fall through the floor. It's sort of Mr. Beast game style into a tank of sharks. And you have to basically sink or swim. Yeah, sing and see if you can distract the sharks with your singing voice for one more chance or death.
Wow. I think we should pitch that. Do you think Discovery would go for it? Maybe a more niche channel.
I think the Beast is open to ideas, so we could pitch it to him. There you go, folks. We've ended on a very sensible note there. That's it from us this week. Thanks for listening. As I mentioned before, if you'd like to more of this hot shark chat every week, you can sign up via Patreon and become a super fan, and we would love you to do so. And you get 15 to 20 to 25 minutes of extra stuff in our virtual pub every week in the lock-in, the Music Ally lock-in. You can become a super fan at patreon.com/thepriceofmusic. This week we'll be talking about a Game Boy inspired digital music player, an update on Little Grandad, the favored band for the show, and stories behind Discogs' most valuable sales in June this year, replete with opinions and thoughts. Alternatively, we'd be very happy for you just to spread the word of the show. You can a like or a follow or a share helps us very much, so please do that. If you have the opportunity and thumb space to do so, you can get in touch with us about anything we've discussed, or any questions you've had for us, or anything sort of research-based you'd like us to go and have a look at and bring back to discuss on the show. Drop us a line with your questions. It's thepriceofmusicpodcast@gmail.com. That is thepriceofmusicpodcast@gmail.com. All emails are passionately read and shared between us. That's it. Stu, great to see you. Great to have you all listening. I've been Joe Sparrow. He's been Stuart Dredge. See you next time.